Welcome to Hidden in Plain Sight Podcast. Your host, Divine Pisces 444. Y'all get ready, because I got some of the best pictures, footage, video that you're going to see online, on YouTube, that is authentic. Check them out. We're going straight into this video. Now, I showed a clip. Watch this celestial, y'all. There's more than one. There's going to be one that's going to run across the camera, and I want you to pay attention to that left corner. Look how it whips around. Ooh, that was like a tornado spinning. Did you see that? Y'all, when I tell you, look at them. This was so mind-blowing. This is recent. This right here. Okay, the celestial, remember I said I was visited by, I didn't know if it was an angel. I didn't know what to think of it because I felt uncomfortable, very uncomfortable that night. But what it was doing, I'm going into a new phase, a new level. And I can't carry over nothing from the last. Anything that's old, suppressed, any negative feelings, emotions. So that is pretty much what it was doing. It was bringing up what I had suppressed. Y'all, when I say these are conscious beings, you have to believe me. They are all up in the midbrain. Welcome to the channel. If you are new, I just want to welcome you. I am all about the supernatural, the unknown. I am a psychic medium. And I know there's a stigma there. I get it. There's a lot of people that hear that word and they click off, they run. But please understand me. People perish because of lack of knowledge. Ignorancy comes from limiting beliefs, a closed mind. Okay, so I was born and raised just like the rest of everyone else in church. All right, that does not take away from my God-given talents and abilities. It's who I am. I did not become a psychic medium. I was born this way. I have been seeing and hearing from spirits, angels, beings, you name it, since a child, since I can recall. I did not do anything. Excuse me. I did not join an occult. You know, we didn't know about any other gods. Like, we were raised with the Bible. So if you're going to be on that judgmental, you feel uncomfortable and you're not, open to understanding or trying to understand, just go ahead and click off. I am not for you. And I'm okay with that. That's not going to bother me. There are a lot of people who are interested in what I am talking about and what I am sharing, but they also have that, the limiting beliefs. Now, if you would just give me a chance, you will learn different. One thing about us humans, we are the most judgmental, critical beings out there. Like, oh my gosh, we're worse than the animals. Like, like a dog has more love and compassion than a darn human does. And that was the thing. When I started to experience these angels, because that's what they are, I didn't know what to think of it because I had never experienced unconditional love. Check that out, you guys. Now, some of you guys understand that they form from light. Some of them form from light. Why? Because they are spirit. You can't see them that well. So when they get around the light, you can see them. The thicker ones, which I call like the celestials, if they're in front of a tree, yes, you can see them. Sometimes, like, okay, the video we saw where one went by. Now, if I would have had it set to color, I still feel like we would have seen it, but not as good. The infrared light was able to show us. But you see how the other ones are in front of that bush? They're in the bush. and they fill in the little gaps, the spaces. And then you see the round dark head. That's a creature. That's definitely a creature. Y'all know how I feel about them creatures. Still working on it. Oh, let me tell you, this shook my world. It first off, I got to a place in my teenage years where I learned to self-medicate. My mother kept backsliding from church. I was seeing spirits, feeling energy. I was overstimulated, on and off medications. And it was so weird because one minute I was a prophet, next minute, here's some medicine. Here, take this. Here, I got an appointment with a therapist. Well, the thing about it is I was having night terrors. And so every time my mother would, it wasn't even so much the backsliding. But then again, it was because she looked at it, she fell away from God, but she was turning back to the darkness. She was drowning in her pain. So her vibrations would drop. You understand? And so when that would happen, it was like she was the head of the household. She was the adult. And all of these lower vibrational spirits would come in. And I could see them. I was affected by them. And it caused a lot of, discomfort. What child wants to live like that every night? Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, that was so uncomfortable, you guys. So now over the years, so after I started self-medicating, over the years, I would still have, there would still be sightings. I would go places, still see spirits, But that house that I grew up in, it was just horrible. It had a lot to do with the house. So it wasn't as much. There were some apartments that I lived in that had some residual energy, stuff like that. But it wasn't to the extremes like 2020. And I cannot say it any better. I cried out. I cried out to the universe and they answered. I mean, I will always say that. And it was like, okay, it's time to stop running. This made me go back. It validated everything I experienced as a kid, what I ran from. And what it made me come to realization is that I wasn't just running from seeing these things. I was running from myself. There was no more running after this. Like, being able to see, a lot of people call it a gift, but those who have the gift have also called it a curse. Y'all see the ones I'm pointing out, right? I feel like it becomes a curse when you don't know how to use your gift. When you're afraid of your ability. Look at that big one, you guys. Like he's coming in very good. Very, very good. This brought me back to myself. And I need to stress this. I really do. The first thing that happened, me and my boys were moving. It was the final night. We'd been moving for about 2 weeks. Same landlord, second house. I got the keys early. So I had been moving stuff all week for like 2 weeks, okay? And this was like the final day. Final day. We got the furniture out and, it'll be our first night in the new house. I go back to get a couple bags and to clean out the kitchen. Make sure the oven's nice and clean and new looking and the refrigerator's clean, deodorized. And that was the night that we were pursued by a small gray hairless creature, an extraterrestrial. Make no mistake about it. That was the first thing that happened. This did not come into play until 2 years later. Now, as a kid, I remember running, getting upset, and I would always run out back and sit on the steps next door to our house. It was like this small apartment complex, and they had some steps in the back, and I would go sit back there. I saw so many creatures in those bushes, and I always, my mother used the word hallucination. And so when you're young, I'm talking about like 12, 13, I remember stressing, it's not in my head. Like, these things are real. But when you have all these adults in your face, doctors, counselors, everybody telling you, it's a figment of your imagination. And don't get me wrong, when I saw people, that was always justified. And that's the part I didn't understand. You believe me when I saw the man, because where I saw the man at, there was a family member there that said, hold on, she's actually seeing my dad or my uncle or whoever. I've been validated by a doctor, of the boy at the hospital who unalived himself. He told my mother. He didn't tell me, but he told my mother. And so I didn't understand that. How are you going to tell me, okay, so I am seeing spirits, people, but when I tell you I'm seeing these creatures, it's the scary movies. And honestly, when I look back, you guys, I think they were just trying to protect me. I do believe that they believe me. I do. I think, telling me that I am seeing that wasn't going to help me. But eventually, you start to believe what everybody is saying. And, family can be mean at times, cruel. And when we'd have our fallouts, my first things my sisters would holler. They would say the C word, you're crazy. And I began to believe it. I did. I didn't know how to turn it off. They wouldn't leave me alone. So I, at a young age, started self-medicating with Mary Jane, and it helped. It helped me disconnect. I thought I was running from this, but I was running from me. And when I had that first ET encounter, I always describe it as this stillness. I remember I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. We're sitting in the car, me and my boys. My oldest wasn't affected by it because he was in the back seat. I'm thinking, I guess that's why he didn't, experience anything. But my youngest was beside me. He did. He seen it, and he, was froze. But even though there was this utter stillness, it was like consciously, it was so loud. You know how, like, when you're getting ready to fall asleep, you can hear your thoughts louder, your subconscious mind louder. So they brought me back to my, conscious mind, like whatever disconnection I had, I feel like they brought me back. Because after that, I shifted. I really shifted. And then I started having multiple ET encounters, like to the point where it was like I was ready to pack a bag, grab a box full of pots and pans, grab my boys and head to the woods. Like I was ready to live out of my car. I didn't know when they was going to pop up, what was going to happen. We could be awake. It wasn't us. It wasn't just through the night. We could be in our own little corners of the house, and we would hear this like boom, and then a high pitched ringing. And sometimes I remember seeing a flashlight, but not every time. And it was like it left us in a daze. But we all recall hearing the explosion sound. Like, what the heck was that? These lights coming up to the window. lighting up the room, seeing flashes of lights in front of our face. Like it just, oh my gosh. There was no escaping it, you guys. Like, and I remember at one point just really getting to the point where I was like, okay, check him out, you guys. Like, I'm wigging out here. You know, my boys were still teenagers and I was trying to keep it together for them. It was so unnerving for me because what it did is it gave me validation of all the things that happened to me as a kid, that it was too real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I really convinced myself that I was crazy. That's what everybody, you know, why well, I ain't gonna say everybody said it, but my family did when they would get mad at me. I got called schizophrenic. I got called a lot of names. Well, you know, she's schizo, you know, but yeah, I was the one that had the dreams in the family. I was the one that dreamt of people's passing before it happened. And I remember there was this inner conflict, you know, and it really hurt me because I didn't understand. And I'm like, if I'm so deranged, I'm so psychotic or crazy, why am I seeing things before they happen? This is what it is, you guys. And this is why I went through a shock. This put me in shock the first couple of years. To come into this and to see that this is real and that there are extraterrestrials, there are spirits all around you. There are things that come out of the trees, you know, at night. Even during the day, they blend. You can't see them. I mean, if you sit still and anchor yourself in the present moment, you will feel their energy. And once you, it's like a frequency. And it's like, you know, like, you know how like blind people, they pay attention to vibration and sound. And then they'll follow that vibration. Well, just imagine that. You're sitting in your backyard, you know, in a chair, and quiet yourself down. You settle the energies down, quiet your mind, silence your mind, and you anchor yourself in the present moment, and you begin to feel the vibrations around you. Well, while this is happening, all of a sudden, you begin to feel or hear a high pitched frequency, like a whistle coming from a tree, a branch. You look over at it and you look directly at it, and it's staring right back at you. That is like, it's incredible, you guys. It's a mixture of emotions, excitement, fear, anxiety. It's a lot. I am so thirsty. I'm sorry, guys. It's like 100 degrees. But it was just so overwhelming. And I never was a believer in ET. So that was really big for me to digest. And then these other beings came and I didn't know what to call them. I called them light beings, vibrational, energetic light beings. They're celestial beings. You know, I've seen different forms of angels. I've seen angels that look like people. I've seen angels that look like creatures, you know. I've seen angels that look like ETs. And they were angels. There's no doubt about it. Going through this, they brought me back to my subconscious mind. I was totally disconnected. I was disconnected from my heart, disconnected from my body. I was disconnected on all levels, okay? They brought me back. And then, you know, while I'm going through the motions, I went through this, what I call the unbecoming done. I was unraveling. And listen, you guys, that is not a walk in the park. Because when you're being stripped of strong belief system, come on, it's the programming. You've been programmed since day one. Since the moment you entered into this world, you started being programmed. You were taught how to eat. You were taught how to talk. You were taught how to walk. You know, they were assisted, whatever. You were given language, you know. I feel like a person that's never been taught language, they will have their own unique way of self-expression, right? Everything has been taught to you. All think about it just for a moment with me. Everything you know was taught to you. And if it wasn't taught, you taught yourself. It was information that was put out in the system. So when we say inner wisdom, that does not come from man. It is not something that is pre-written. It's not traditional. It is the wisdom that resides in your blueprint, in your spirit. It is old. It is ancient. Okay? And I'm going to tell you, spiritual awakening, that's exactly what that is. That is spirit activation. That is your spirit rising from a death-like sleep, from a disconnection. I remember basically losing my religion. I questioned God. I was crying to God, like, why are you letting this happen? It was my understanding of who and what God was. And that's why I struggled so hard. And right when I thought, this is it, it's over. They've come to get me. I can't run from this any longer. I have. They take me to the far corners of the earth. I will never forget that as long as I live. I've been taken many a times. This one particular time, I wake up and I'm on a cliff, the edge of a mountain. I was on the top of the mountain, but on like a cliff. And the ocean, this endless sea, was in front of me. And it's like, I don't know, maybe 5 a.m, early morning before the sun comes up. I could not believe they brought me there. And I turned around and behind me was like, an open field. Like you could tell that it was grass there. And I saw a tree about 20 feet away. And this tree symbolized, it looked like the tree of life. And I'm looking at it, because I'm getting ready to start moving in that direction. I'm not afraid of heights, but I was that, in that moment, yeah, you think, here's a sea right here. And I felt like if I just took the wrong move, I was going to fall off. And so as I'm looking, I see this head, this big head, a gray, funny shaped head. It was small. He could have been no more than 2.5 feet tall. It was an ET. And he was hiding behind that tree, watching me. And once I seen him and he saw me, he dipped back behind the tree. And I let out a cry, why would you bring me here? And I felt so vulnerable, so scared. And as a human, it is our natural instinct to make ourselves feel safe. So the only thing I could think of is to get into a fetus position and hold myself. So as I began to lower myself to the ground, I didn't even get all the way down on my knees. I hear a voice. It was loud. It sounded like thunder. And I can't remember everything. I would need to be, hypnotized probably to tap into exactly what all was said. But what the first thing I can kind of recall was I heard, "They're there now." And it was very soothing. And I remember when I first heard it, I said, "God," not Jesus. I said, "God, is that you?" And it started talking to me, but it didn't talk for a long time, and then it stopped. And a few moments went by. I still had a lot of anxiety. I'm up on this cliff, this mountain, and I'm looking around. The water from that was splashing up on the rocks that were down below me. I could feel the mist from the water coming up. It was so surreal. Oh, I was there. This wasn't no astral projection, none of that. I was there in physical form. I was physically there. And, that feeling, anxiety kicked back in again. And once again, I began to weep. And I wanted to make myself feel safe again. I began to lower myself back down again for the second time in a fetus position. And then the voice came back again. And this time, when I heard the voice, I remember searching, trying to find it. Who's talking to me? This voice was loud, powerful, like thunder. And I'm listening to the voice and I'm just looking around. And the second time around, that's when I realized, oh my gosh, it's coming from the sea. It's coming from the mountain itself. The voice was coming from the sky. It was everywhere. That was the Creator. And it couldn't have came at a better time. It couldn't have came at a better time, y'all. When I tell you I was wigging out around that time, I was wigging out. I was losing it. Because I thought God had turned his back on me. I'm a believer in God. I'm a believer in a higher power. I've always been, not just because of church, because, I've seen spirits. So I know there's an afterlife. I know there is. I knew that what the church was telling us, it didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand a lot of the stuff. Like when you leave here, you know nothing of this world, and that's not always true. I think they misinterpret a lot of the scriptures. There are spirits that are very aware of this life, this world, and the people in it. Okay, I've been approached by many of them over the years. And then I've had some that what I call residual energy. They're just there. They don't acknowledge you. They're just there. And so, but that couldn't have came at a better time. Like it was everything my spirit needed. You understand what I'm telling you? And when I woke up and I was back in my bed, I just remember crying and just thanking God. Just, oh my God, just so grateful because he was involved. He was very much so involved in this, and that's when I thought it was divine, but I wasn't certain because of the information that was out there about ETs, You know what I mean? So and because I didn't believe in ET, so when I started having the ET encounters, I looked into it, and it was nothing but negative information, fear-driven, anxiety-creating information that was out there about these ETs. So yeah, I had a really hard time in the beginning, but once that happened, I shifted, and I shifted hard. Like I shifted really hard. And I knew then, I was like, okay. I cried out for months to the universe, to the Creator, praying to Jesus wasn't working no more. I needed something I could feel and touch. I needed something to come and touch me. I needed divine intervention. Okay. Now when I say that, I'm not trying to dismiss Jesus, y'all. Please don't take it that way. I know some people do. But I needed more. I needed more than that. I needed more than just having faith. I didn't understand why I could see all this other stuff, but why not, what is this? Like, where are you at? Where are the angels? Where's God at? And yeah, this is exactly what I asked for. I got. They came. And it was just so rough on me. It was like what I would call a rude awakening. Check them out, you guys. And then once again, I had to come back. I was in this honeymoon phase. And then it was like this rude awakening again. Because, okay, there's the divine ones. Look at them. A whole group of them. Beautiful. But then I started seeing some low vibrational ones. Now that kicked up a bunch of anxiety and fear. And I had to deal with that. And I feel like it happened because it was time for me to deal with my fear. That was the root for me. Fear. What is your root, pain? Like, where does your disconnection come from? Look at this humongous one, you guys. He is huge. There was actually two of them over there. One had like a smaller head, and then there was the big one. I stress this so much when I tell you guys, these are conscious spiritual beings. And I do believe this is my, entertainment purposes only. I'm not stating any facts here. And I'm still trying to understand a lot of it myself. But me personally, I feel like the rapture has already happened. And now we're in the Armageddon. I feel like when COVID hit, that to me, that was the rapture. It's just the type of people that were leaving. It wasn't just sick people. It was healthy people. It was good people. It was a lot of different people leaving. And if it wasn't the rapture, hold on, let me reword that. That could have been a plague. I take that back. I forgot I had another understanding on it. That was my first thought. But since I shifted again, and you will continue to shift, your perspective will continue to change. I believe the rapture is personal. And I understand, I always looked at the rapture as, the picture my grandmother had of people coming out of the plains, Jesus returning on the cloud and all the spirits rising from the ground and stuff like that. So I had that happen here. That's the thing. I had that happen here. There were literally thousands and thousands of spirits shooting up from my backyard. These little tiny gold lights, those were spirits. And the picture, so MUFON, I'm pretty sure it was them because they were the only ones I talked to. Like over 2,000 pictures and videos that I did not share publicly. They were my very best. I mean, very best. And I was waiting for a book or a documentary to release that content, And when I tell you, it was some really deep pictures of these extraterrestrials standing in my driveway. Some short, some super tall giants. There was also a picture. It was so many pictures. So I have the one video of the man that formed at that tree, the back of the tree over there. But there was one with a woman. They got that one. There was another one. It looked like a cloud coming down over there at the park. And inside the cloud, they call them celestial beings. Okay. They're made of light. It was a black man with an afro. And he had these blue like alien creatures that look like Stitch. It was a bunch of them. And they were on the left and the right side of him. The camera captured this. This is through the night, 2022, when all this was going down. I would wake up to so many pictures and videos that, the camera was triggered and we would be asleep. And so I remember seeing that particular picture and I said, oh my God, is this Jesus? You know what I mean? Because it said he would come down on a cloud with an army of angels. That's the rapture. So I remember at one point wondering, is the rapture personal? Does everybody have their own rapture? Think about that. Is that a personal thing? You know, caught up in the spirit. It's your rapture. I know, listen, I've been telling you guys what I've been going through since I came public. I talked about, my light body activation. I even talked about the initiations I went through. And I said the most recent one, I said, I'm going through my resurrection. That is real. I'm not making this stuff up. Like, that is so real. And it's not like, oh, well, that's what it feels like. No, that is what it is. This is real, you guys. I went through the soul review. I've gone through a lot. I've released soul ties, like not just on paper. Like I never got to do any of that. My shadow work wasn't done on paper. It was done like in an astral plane. Like I was literally being escorted by extraterrestrials, spirit guides, angels, all of that. Like my work was physical. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was just so mind blowing. It has been a hell of a journey. One that I wouldn't trade for all the money in the world. I'm so grateful. I'm truly grateful to have gone through this, to have experienced this, because my ancestors, my family before me didn't make it this far. To be able to heal, it has really, really been a blessing. And that is exactly what it is, healing. Finding myself again, returning back home. I call it the journey back to self, because it's a journey, and it really is. And I have never experienced nothing like this before. Never. And once, like, I'll have an encounter, and a lot of times I think they're like negative until it's over. And then maybe a day or two later, I'll realize that it wasn't negative. It didn't come to hurt me. It came to assist me. Like I said, now I'm entering into a new phase. This is my resurrection, justification, vindication, restoration, and manifestation. In that order. Come on now, who am I talking to? I know some of y'all resonate with me. Listen, let me tell you something about me. I know a lot of people misjudge me. A lot of people think I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's okay. But one thing I know for sure, energy attracts. Okay? And I know there's maybe a handful of people that watch me that do not resonate whatsoever with me. But I would say 80% of the people that watch me actually resonate. They resonate with my energy. It's like hearing yourself talk. When I share my story or just what I've been through or what I'm going through, it's like, oh my gosh. This is exactly what I've been experiencing. I know that because energy attracts. Energy attracts. And I feel like it's my calling to share. I've always been the type to share. Even when I was younger, I would talk to people and share. because I understand what it's like to go through something and not understand what you're going through. I get that. This last visit was not to hurt me, even though it was uncomfortable and it was unpleasant. I had suppressed an injustice that happened to me, and I'm not at the mercy of the government, but I do need to be able to take care of myself and my children. And there was an injustice. There's been an injustice, a couple of them. And I don't have a victim mentality. Okay, I grew from that. But it was like, I'm the type of person, okay, maybe there's an error in the system. Let me resubmit. Let me go back up there. But I kept resubmit. Now I'm just being ignored. And I could go over their head. I could probably, like when I Google this, it tells me to contact downtown to, the courthouse. Like this, it's an injustice. It's discrimination. But I said, you know what, God? All right, Spirit. I know what you're doing because I've been praying for self-sufficient. Who can live off $500 a month? Please let me know in the comments. And you got a house and you got kids and a car. But I said, I prayed for self-sufficiency. And, I thought maybe it'll come through YouTube or TikTok. And it's not. And it's okay. I let go of that, you guys. Because that took me out of alignment. I had a supporter tell me one time, I fell in love with you in the beginning because you did this from your heart. And then somewhere down the road you changed. And I said, no, I didn't. And she said, it's your delivery. It's like you started trying to go viral. You were focused on going viral. And I had to sit with that for a while. And if I don't know any better, I do know this. You can't chase. Whatever you chase is going to run from you. And I tell you, it was a long ways down, you guys. I had a vision and I went after that vision. And I had to humble myself all over again. And tap back into the reason why I started this. And not to lose sight of that again. I thought people would support me along my journey. I thought a lot of things, and I was wrong. When I do ask for donations, people get offended. I think people assume because I make content and I have a lot of followers and stuff that I'm making a bunch of dough, but that's not the case. Not at all. Not at all. But like I said, so I got out of that, said it's okay, I'm gonna let that part go. But then the forefront here, started to kind of like shake, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I'm entering into a new phase, and I have to trust. All doors are closing. My mom used to always say this to me, be careful what you ask for. I prayed, I asked to make me self-sufficient. Oh my gosh. But being self-sufficient doesn't mean the money's going to fall from the sky. That means you're going to have to do some things. You're going to have to put in that work. And so I was like, well, I need to stop doing this so I can go back to work. I can figure out something, even I'll bring my oxygen with me. I'll figure it out. I'll do this. I'll do that. And Spirit said, if you don't sit still and be quiet, you're doing the thing that's going to bring you prosperity. You just need to focus on coming into alignment. Well, people don't want to see this grainy footage no more. And see, it was never about the footage. It's always been about the message. But how can you deliver the message when you're out of alignment? How can you deliver a message when you don't know if you're coming or going, and you're scattered and you're worrying, you're stressing and you're chasing? I am a walking miracle. I am, a result of what happens when you go through this process. I am being put on display for all to see. And I said this before, I got to get my stuff together, because I don't want them to abandon me. I've never felt this type of help before, and this guidance that I'm receiving. I have never felt nothing like it. Even though there's times that it scares me, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't give it up for all the money in the world. So, I'm dedicated to my ascension. And with that, I'm going to close. I love you guys, and I see you all in the next video.